Hi, and thanks for joining another edition of Around the Storage Block podcast. I'm your host, HP Storage Guy, Calvin Zito.
With me on the podcast today is Chris Champage. Chris actually reached out to me a couple weeks ago and gave me some interesting data about how HP 3PAR is doing in Canada. And Chris, I thought it'd be a great conversation for us to have to talk about what you've been seeing in Canada with storage.
Yeah, sure, Calvin. I look forward to the conversation.
So why don't I first, so that people know who you are, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? You obviously today you work for HP and you're working in storage and you're on airplanes all over Canada. But tell me a little bit about your background and what you've done in the IT industry.
Sure. So my current role at HP is I'm the National Business Development Manager for the channel in Canada with 100% focus on storage. And I came to HP through the 3PAR acquisition going back to September 2010. And prior to HP, was with 3PAR for a little over a year. Really started net new in Canada, was the first salesperson brought on in Canada, myself together with Bill Neville, my technical counterpart. And then prior to 3PAR, I actually worked under my own banner of Champagne Consulting as an entrepreneur for about 3 years in a sales agent model. And then worked prior to that with Onyx Enterprise Solutions in their managed services team. And then really I cut my teeth in IT working at Tech Data, one of Canada's larger distributors, going back to the early 1990s, and spent about 13 years at Tech Data.
So you've been through a lot of changes in the IT industry, but what's maybe some unique things going on in Canada right now with storage?
Yeah, I think the biggest change that we're seeing is in the mid-market, kind of the 25K to 250K kind of bracket and budget around storage specifically, that segment of customers seems to be the one that is most looking to change from the legacy architectures that they're using today, a lot of them from our competitors, that the storage that they're using today is too costly, too admin intensive, and they're looking to leverage a more modern architecture where they can take advantages of bringing applications to market faster, purely around efficiency and taking advantages of things like thin to save money, but really using storage as a catalyst to drive new business and as a competitive differentiator. I think the challenge around explosion of data that everyone's experiencing, virtualization, data has never been more difficult to manage. That's not just Canada, but I think the mid-market size of customer is the one that's being most impacted, and those are the ones that we're having the most success with, that are looking to make change and migrate on to HP's storage portfolio, certainly 3PAR being the cornerstone.
Well, we know that when we introduced the HP 3PAR StoreServ 7000, being able to deliver Tier 1 functionality at a mid-range price, that was game-changing. Was that a big event for you guys in Canada as well? I would imagine with kind of just knowing what I do about Canada, that had to be huge in Canada.
Yeah, really, it hit the sweet spot of the Canadian market as it relates to customer size, that mid-market spend between 25K and 250K. The StoreServ was priced perfectly in that space. And really, we started to see kind of what the reaction was going to be around the launch of StoreServ. When we had David Scott here in January of 2013, filled the room in Toronto, and online broadcast to partners and customers across Canada. I think we had over 600 altogether. And that to us was an indication that we might have something here. And then that further led into some really good numbers in Q2, where StoreServ 7400 was the number one mid-range SAN product in Canada. And really that gained us momentum leading into Q4, which we've got some really exciting results to share as well.
Yeah, Chris, what I want you to do is talk specifically about the results in Canada from the IDC Q4 2013 disk storage tracker for mid-range SAN storage revenue in Canada. Great results that we've achieved.
Yeah, absolutely. Customers are voting with their dollars clearly in terms of the investment in the StoreServ architecture. In calendar Q4 in 2013, HP ranked number one in market share with the share of 25.6%. points of share, a gain of 14.5 points of share compared to the same period in 2012. So HP went from number 4 market share to number 1, really incredible share gain. And some more detail underneath that. For the same period, IBM lost 7.3 points of share, NetApp lost 6.4 points of share, and EMC lost 5.9 points of market share. And from a revenue perspective for that period, we grew revenue for storage at 225% year over year growth, while EMC's revenue declined 13%. So really a remarkable result, really considering how long StoreServ had been in the market. And again, customers making that move to StoreServ.
Well, we're seeing a lot of these kinds of results across the world, but I hope people understand just 1 point of market share gain is huge, and we're talking huge market share gains in Canada. We need to figure out how to bottle up what you guys are doing and do this everywhere across the world, because these are great results, and you got to be proud of them.
Yeah, tremendous team in Canada, and look forward to success into Q1 and Q2 and beyond. And if any indications are based on the results that I'm seeing, this trend is continuing, and we continue to take out the competition, customers making business decisions based on an architecture that's driven to help provide them with a competitive advantage and reduce cost in managing the data center.
Yeah, and more on the kind of the competition angle of this, I was actually on a call today with a channel partner who basically described that they're seeing so many customers who currently have competitive offering from NetApp and EMC, and they are coming to them wanting HP 3PAR, and they're turning over to HP 3PAR and pulling out EMC and NetApp. So obviously you're seeing exactly that behavior.
Yeah, and that's happening in Canada. Certainly, for me, the last 3 weeks, I've had 3 partners that previously were not on our radar screen because of a strong EMC influence, as well as Cisco, that have met with me and wanted to know more about our success and how can they participate and be part of it. And these are significant partners in Canada.
So one last thing I want to ask you, and this is probably a little bit of a personal question for you, but I mean, it's coming up on, 3.5 years, and as you said, this September will be 4 years of 3PAR being a part of HP, and the retention of people who stayed, to me, is amazing. I mean, most of the time you get a startup and people want to go on to the next startup, but a majority of people have stayed, and I'm curious to ask you, what makes you excited to stay at HP right now?
Yeah, the turnaround HP has had, not only for storage, but as a company, has been remarkable. And, coming to HP via 3PAR, the small company, going to, 300,000 plus employees was a huge change. And my first year and a half at HP was a challenge as we got our heads around this new architecture. We announced StoreServ, and then the rocket took off. And I consider myself to be pretty fortunate that because I've been able to get to know so many people within HP, both our channel team and our frontline storage specialist, I think we've got a great team. And I'm excited where the technology is going. We're winning in the market, and it's pretty exciting to be part of, arguably the biggest turnaround of any technology company ever. So I'm excited to be here, and I know we've had good results. They're going to be better, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that.
Well, that's what we share a lot in common. The only difference is I've already been here for 30 years, and I've told people before I've been offered the opportunity to leave to go to leading competitors in the market, and it took me about 10 seconds to say no to those offers because I'm just really excited about the plan we have, and I can't wait for what we're going to be talking about in the near future, which coming with 3PAR, which obviously, Chris, we can't talk about that on a public podcast, but we know it's coming, and it's some pretty dang exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's from when David Scott, at 3PAR prior to joining HP, we were talking about how 3PAR was going to go from being a $200 million company to a $500 million company to a $1 billion company, and to see what HP has done in 5x the revenue in less than 3 years. imagine now with the leadership that we're having in the market, where we're going to be able to take this. So yeah, it's a pretty exciting time to be here.
Well, I appreciate the time, Chris. Great chatting with you, and hope to get to meet you face to face sometime in the near future.
Yeah, thanks, Calvin. I appreciate your time, and I enjoy reading your blog and sharing it with others in Canada as well. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thanks a bunch.
You've been listening to Around the Storage Block podcast. I'm your host, Calvin Zito. You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/HPStorageGuy, and you can find our